Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and man, I really appreciate you guys coming by and checking the video out and spending some time with me today. We are going to be talking about how to fish, give you guys some tips and advice on fishing the old school Rapala Shad Rap. Man, this has been probably, if not the most, one of the most productive lures over the past 50 years in bass fishing. And I've got some pretty good tips and advice I'd like to share with you guys to help you catch some fish on it, because it still works as good today as it ever has. So we're going to get into that in today's video. Also guys, quick reminder, anyone out there interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, we're doing jerkbait lessons right now, mainly down at Stockton and Table Rock Lake. And if you guys are interested, just shoot me a private message on my Facebook page, Randy Blockett Professional Angler. Give you all the details for that. So much appreciated. Okay guys, as long as I can remember, almost, the Shad Rap has been around. If you guys have seen some of the old magazines I show you, you'll see ads for the Shad Rap back in the 1970s. The old Rapala minnow was actually the first lure that I ever bass fished with there on my little Turkey Creek down in Joplin, Missouri. That was my lure, the blackback silver side, little, tiny little 2-inch Rapala minnow. And then when I started bass fishing, I started using the Rapala Shad Raps here. And so I've been using them since the 1970s. And I sort of want to go over conditions they work in, sort of the situations you want to throw them in, and give you guys some tips and advice on colors and how to work them and all that type of stuff. First of all, guys, the Shad Rap will work all year. It's one of those crankbaits that you can literally catch bass on 12 months out of the year. It works in cold water, it works in mid-range water, and it works in hot water. I have literally caught them every month of the year, from January back to December. I have caught fish on Shad Rap at some point in time, throughout my fishing career out there. So there's very few crankbaits that you can say that about, that they work all year long, but this is one of them. And I think one of the reasons is it's so natural looking. I mean, it looks like a little shad. It's quiet. It's a balsa crankbait. It doesn't have any noise to it, so it doesn't telegraph itself. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's been so effective, is that the profile and the stealthiness of a Shad Rap does not allow, fish can't get conditioned to it as easy, because they can't get conditioned to rattles or certain sounds and that type of stuff. It's got a tight vibration on it, so just a subtle crankbait. Now let's talk a little bit about what you want to look for, how you want to fish it. Again, it works about anywhere you want to throw it, guys. I have caught fish on the Harris chain in Florida, throwing it over grass. I've caught fish all through Texas throwing it. I've caught them in the Tennessee lakes and the Kentucky lakes. I've caught them all over the Ozarks lakes. I've caught them in Oklahoma on the thing. It works on about any type of cover, rock, riprap banks, clay banks, gravel banks. It's not that great of a wood bait. The bait does not come through wood very good. So that's one, type of structure I do not fish it on. But rock and grass are the two primary areas that I fish these things on. Now, one of the things you'll find out about Shad Rap is, for whatever reason, guys, I do really good on it when I'm fishing it around some type of smaller rock, like, fist-size rock, gravel, clay, that type of stuff. It works really good around small rock, maybe because there's not as many crawdads on small rock. And, a lot of these Shad Raps, since they look like a shad, they look like they're resembling a shad more. So maybe that's one of the reasons for that. But, I'm usually targeting rock with it. Anytime that I'm fishing, if I'm fishing when the water temperatures are cooler, like in the 40s and 50s, riprap is a really good structure to throw them around. Channel banks, bluff banks, 45-degree angle chunk rock banks, and again, the gravel banks with that. Just wherever you think the fish are at, this thing could work everywhere. It's also really good on shallow drop-offs. You guys that are fishing some of the TVA lakes, where you have those main lake flats that drop off into the creek channels and ditches in sort of that 4 to 7 foot range. I've caught a lot of fish around those ditches and those shallow drops on it. I've caught a lot of fish on bridge piers with it. I've caught one of the biggest strings of fish in my life. I was practicing for the Redman All-American down at Lake Toho in 1986, and I was catching them off there was telephone poles in Lake Toho, like channel markers, and I was throwing a Shad Rap around those telephone poles in Florida in the fall time of the year. So they just bite them about anywhere, So when you're trying to talk about when and what to throw it around, literally, I can't give you like a definitive time to say this is when you want to throw it. I guess there would be two situations where it works the best for me. Number one, there's two different scenarios where I probably caught more fish than at other times. Not to say that I haven't caught fish all year on it, but if you gave me, like, say, Randy, what's the best situation period for a Shad Rap? There'd be two situations. Number one would be in the late pre-spawn, when the water temperature is like in the high 50s or something like that. That's when I usually go to the crawfish pattern like this. This has been one of my favorite patterns for that. And I just get on those staging areas, those pre-spawn steeper channel banks, just places that drop off pretty quick like that here in the Ozarks. I'll take it and I'll put it on my 6.5 foot megabass whip snake spinning rod. I'm usually fishing on an 6 to 8 pound test Seaguar and Vizex line. I very seldom fish it on over 8 pound test line. And I try to parallel those rocky banks with it, parallel those rocky steeper channel banks during the pre-spawn like that. Caught a lot of good fish doing that. And then the other times that I've caught some good fish on it is in the middle of the summertime, when I'm cranking some type of riprap bank on there. Dam riprap, bridge ripraps, anything like that. For whatever reason, summertime riprap, especially early and late in the day, I've caught some good fish on the Shad Rap on that. And then the third and final one would be over some type of grass flat, where you've got grass flats that are in 4 to 8 foot of water, fishing it over the top. Now, there's three colors that I basically use based upon the sun conditions and the water clarity. I use the black back and silver side. Then they have one that's just sort of like a shad pattern here. And then they have what's called their crawdad pattern. Now, to me, guys, the crawdad pattern is the color that I use in the most off-colored water. I don't fish it in dirty water. Probably about the dirtiest water clarity that I fish a Shad Rap in is 2 to 2.5 foot visibility. So if I've got like that 2 to 3 foot visibility, I like the crawdad pattern. If I've got water visibility sort of in that 2 to 4 foot zone, I like just whatever they call the shad pattern here, works pretty good. And if I've got cleaner water, like water visibility of over like 4 feet, I've caught a lot more fish on the silver side black back. This is probably the one I've caught the most on of any color out there over the years. And so I let the sky conditions and the water clarity dictate which color I use. Obviously, if it's low light conditions, it makes me more, conducive to throw the crawdad pattern a little bit. But overall, I sort of pay a little bit more attention to the water clarity than the sunlight condition on there. Retrieve is another thing on there. Most of the time with the Shad Rap, I'm not just using, I'm not just throwing it out there and just crank it in. Well, the line's goofed up here, but I'm not just throwing it out there and just cranking it in like that. Most of the time when I throw it out there, I'm cranking it down a little bit. And when I get it down to its deepest part, I'll pull it a lot like that and crank it back and just pull it like that, sort of sweep it. And it seems like, for whatever reason, almost like a half crankbait, half jerkbait, that's produced a lot more fish for me with that. But anyway, guys, this is one crankbait that it's just as good now as it's ever been. I have not seen the Shad Rap, lose any effectiveness whatsoever, with the exception that it is a little bit more situational. While it will work 12 months out of the year, since the lure is so specific on the type of action it has in the terms of the thinner, smaller, quieter profile with the tight wobble, the fish do sort of have to be in that right mood and that right personality to bite that lure. One of the things that I have found about the Shad Rap, and it's a reality of it, and sort of a good thing too, is it works better in those tougher fishing conditions. Say for example, after a front comes through, or if there's a lot of fishing pressure in an area, or if you have bright bluebird skies and the wind's not blowing much, a little bit tougher fishing conditions out there. I almost won the Bassmaster Megabucks tournament. Well, I would have won it. The tournament that Jeff McGee won it down at it was White Rock Lake down at Dallas, Texas. I finished third in that tournament. I missed winning the tournament by just a couple ounces, and I caught 75% of my fish in that tournament on a Shad Rap, just on that little lake there. But like I said, it works really good. And that little White Rock Lake I was telling you about, it was a city park lake that got a ton of fishing pressure. And that's when a Shad Rap will really excel, is in those areas that have a lot of fishing pressure and finicky fish, simply because it's a non-aggressive crankbait. At other times, your more aggressive crankbaits like your square bills and your wider wobbling crankbaits will actually produce a lot more fish because it triggers more of a reaction strike. And a Shad Rap, even though it is a crankbait, and a crankbait is a reaction lure, it doesn't really trigger reaction strikes as much as other crankbaits do. A Shad Rap is more of a subtle vibration and more of a sight crankbait, but it's definitely, got a place in your box. There's no doubt at all. I've got probably, you can see the ones I've got right here. I've probably got 30 or so of them in that top row right there. And they make it several different sizes. They make just this is the standard size most people use. I think this is the number 7, and they make a number 9, which is a bigger one. They make a number 5, which is a smaller one. Each one of them are good situationally. So anyway, guys, if you bass fish very long, you're very familiar with the Shad Rap. If you don't bass fish much, it's an old school lure, but still very productive. You might want to pick up a few. I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description, and I'll link the Shad Raps in there if you guys want to pick up a few of them there. So hope it helps you guys catch a few. We'll talk later.